Okay, so good morning, dear students. Welcome to our virtual class for this morning. Before I proceed, may I request everyone to mute your microphone to avoid unnecessary noise and distractions, and turn off your video as well, and please observe proper behavior during our virtual class. Okay, so I would like to introduce myself to you. I am Maria Ana C. Robles, your online learning coordinator, or your OLC for this course, English 101. I am one of the faculty members of College of Arts and Sciences at AMA Malolos City, Bulacan. Okay, so for our first code, we have here UGRD ENGL 101 for 2113T, and this is Communication Skills 1. Okay, and our topic for week 1 is strategies in writing, but for now, I will be discussing the introduction to communication. Okay, so for our course code, at the end of the discussion, we will be able to define communication and then differentiate verbal from non-verbal communication, and identify and explain the different types of non-verbal communication. And also, we will try to discuss the different elements of communication. Okay, so let us now begin by defining or discussing communication. So what is communication? Okay, so from the time we wake up in the morning till we say good night in the evening, we communicate. So communication is an activity, especially to us, for us human beings. Okay. Now, let's have first the etymology of the word communication. So when you say etymology, it means the origin or the derivation of a certain term. Now, the word communication has originated from a Latin word communis or communes, which means something in common. Okay, so because we commonly do this activity of communicating. Okay, now communication is a process of exchanging information, process of exchanging ideas, thoughts, even feelings and emotions through speech signals or oral communication, through writing, or through behavior. So in communication process, a sender encodes a message and then using a medium, send it to the appropriate feedback using this medium. Okay, or whatever medium or channel we are using. Okay, now in communication, as I said a while ago, you can express thoughts, ideas, and feelings. It creates awareness of what is happening around us. Okay, so through communication, we can create awareness. Okay, and then we fulfill goals. So in our life, we set our goals and objectives. Okay, and then communication avoid isolation. As the saying goes, no man is an island. No man can live alone. So therefore, we people socialize by means of communicating with each other. Okay, and then it highlights issues. It connotes progress and development, and through communication we can educate. Okay, Now, what are the roles of communication? Okay. Now, right from the time a child is born, communication plays an important role in his life. Speaking, listening, and writing uh, are the common forms of communication. Okay. Now, a large part of our time is devoted in communication as we share our thoughts and feelings with individuals and groups of people. And this communication helps us to develop an organized society with defined roles for each individual. Now, in the business world, managers perform their tasks and responsibilities through communication. So it provides the basis for effective implementation of plans, assigning jobs to people, carrying out directions and activities, and facilitates control. Now, management functions can be performed successfully when managers communicate face-to-face, telephonically, or electronically with their superiors, peers, subordinates, customers, uh, suppliers, competitors, and others. Now, even when they are not talking, they are busy reading or writing. Uh, and this reading and writing are also forms of communication, which has reduced geographical distances into storable and confidential forms and facilitated a large number of people to interact with each other. Okay. Now, it is very important that communication should be effective, because effective communication is transfer of information along with transfer of understanding. So if there is an effective communication, there will be mutual understanding among people. Uh, it means transfer of messages, ideas, and information in a manner that the sender and the receiver understand the subject in the same sense. Okay. Now, communication is the process of sending message in such a way that the message received is as close in meaning as possible to the message intended. Effective communication thus takes place when receiver understands the message in the same sense as the sender wants to convey. Now, it is the foundation for human interaction uh, that develops understanding among two or more persons. So it promotes objectives or common objectives through coordinated efforts among people belonging to different functional departments. Now, what are the elements of communication? What, what makes communication effective are these elements of communication. First, we have the sender. Now, who is the sender? The sender is a person who encodes and sends the message to the expected receiver through an appropriate channel. Okay? Uh, uh, a sender is a source of the message that is generated to be delivered to the receiver after appropriate stimulus from the referent. Okay? And then if there is a sender, there should always be a receiver. Okay, who is the receiver? It is an individual or group of individuals intended to receive, decode, and interpret the message sent by the sender or the source of the message. A receiver is also known as the decoder, and he is expected to have the ability and skills to receive, encode, or decode, and interpret the message. Okay? Now, another element is the message. Now, the message is, of course, the content of communication and may contain verbal, non-verbal, or symbolic language. Now, perception and personal factors of the sender and receiver may sometimes distort this element, and the intended outcome of communication may not be achieved. For example, the same message may be communicated or perceived differently by two individuals because we have uh, different interpretation of the message received and perceived. Okay? So another element is the channel. Now, a channel is a medium through which a message is sent or received between two or more people. Now, several channels can be used to send or receive the message for seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, and uh, tasting. So there are so many channels nowadays, or medium or pathways wherein we can communicate. With the advancement of technology, we can communicate anytime, anywhere, to anybody. Okay? Now, while selecting channels of communication, several factors may be considered. First, availability of the channel or medium, whether it is telephone, internet, chatting, email, okay? So availability of the channel or purpose, suitability, types of receivers, types of message, preference of the sender and the receivers, communication skills of the sender and receiver, cost, and others. So you have to take note of these uh, uh, factors, okay? And also feedback. Uh, Another element is feedback. It is the return. It is a return message sent by the receiver to the sender. So it is the most essential element of the communication process, as it shows that the receiver has understood the primary message sent by the sender, and the communication process is now considered complete. Okay, you have to reply, you have to give feedback, you have to answer to the sender so that uh, uh, there will be what we call communication process, because communication is a two-way process. Okay, it is a give and take relationship between the sender and the receiver, so there should be a feedback. Okay, yeah, a successful communication must be a two-way process where the sender sends the message and the receiver receives feedback from the receiver. Okay, and this feedback could be verbal and nonverbal. Okay, now we have also the what we call compounding or confounding elements, and these elements are not a direct part of the flow of the communication process, but influence the communication process significantly indirected. And these elements are interpersonal variables of the sender and the receiver and the environment where the communication process takes place. Interpersonal variables such as perception, beliefs, values, sociocultural background, educational and developmental levels, emotion, gender, physical and mental health, and others may significantly affect communication process. Okay? So these are the elements of communication. For the communication process to be effective, there should be a present, or there should be the presence of these elements of communication. Now, what are the means of communication? Okay. Now, or what are the two types of communication? Communication can be verbal and nonverbal communication. So what is verbal and what is nonverbal communication? verbal communication refers to the form of communication in which message is transmitted verbally. Okay? Communication here is done by word, by mouth, by the word of mouth, and a piece of writing. Okay? So, objective of every communication is to have people understood what we are trying to convey. So, in other words, when we say verbal communication, it can be oral or written, making use of words or language. Okay? Now, in oral communication, spoken words are used. So it includes face-to-face conversations, delivering a speech, telephonic conversation, video, radio, television, voice over internet. Okay? So in oral communication, communication is influenced by pitch, volume, speed, and clarity of speaking. Okay? So another form of verbal communication is written communication, which is the focus of our course, because English 101 is more on writing. Now, in written communication, written signs or symbols are used to communicate. So a written message may be printed or handwritten. So in writing, so in written communication, message can be transmitted via email, letter, report, memo, and others. So message in written communication is influenced by the vocabulary and grammar used, writing style, precision, and clarity of the language used. So again, in written communication, we also make use of words and language. Now, how about nonverbal communication? What is nonverbal communication? So it is the opposite of the verbal communication, because in here we make use of signs and symbols. So nonverbal can go without verbal communication, and verbal can't go without nonverbal communication. Now, in nonverbal communication, we make use of body language, which is known as kinesics. We make use of touch language, or what we call haptics, because by means of touching, we can communicate. By means of body language, we can communicate. For example, the use of our face, our facial expression, because our face is a camouflage of expression. We can determine it if a person is sad, happy, lonely, angry, excited, through the use of his facial expression. Okay, the use of our hands, the use of our arms, the use of our shoulder, even our legs and our feet. So it conveys meaning, and we call it body language. Okay, so another form of nonverbal communication is proxemics, which has something to do with space language, space and distance. Okay, and then also the use of artifacts, okay, or objects, okay, the use of different adornment, the use of different the way we dress, okay, our hairstyle, okay, our the jewelries that we put in ourselves, okay, so that is objectives. And then chronemics, what we call time language, is also nonverbal communication. Even silence, okay, being silent can convey meaning, okay, and also signs, different signs, for example, railroad signs. So through signs, it can convey meaning to the different people, okay? Drawings, symbols, Okay, and even paralanguage, okay, paralanguage or the use of voice, okay, whether it is volume, pitch, rate, okay. So these are the different types of nonverbal communication. Okay, so those are the things that we should know about communication before we go on further with the writing itself. Okay. Now, before I end, I would like to share with you a quotation about communication that a good relationship starts with good communication. And in many ways, effective communication begins with mutual respect, communication that inspires, encourages others to do their best. Okay? So that concludes our uh, discussion for this morning. Thank you for attending our virtual class. Keep safe, everyone, and God bless us all. Thank you.